it's Gross, and you're watching Fightrepreneur TV.
What's up, folks? It's Big Boy with Fightrepreneur TV here at the FCF with your recap show with our main man, Matthew Gaither from Cage Zombies Radio, was awarded Best Radio Host last year. We've brought him back to do another recap. Matt, our views went crazy when you were on last time. I think it's the handsomeness. I don't know. With both of us in here, there's lots of handsomeness. But listen, we had a great night of fights tonight at the FCF. Regent is a beautiful place. The crowd was off the chain. 8 magnificent fights, 1 main event with Tony Murphy and Terry Janowski that was tooth and nails.
Could have got 2 more rounds out of it.
2 more rounds out of that, just a 3-round fight. But let's give a little recap of the 8 fights. We're going to start off with fight number 1, where we had Cheney Oliver fighting out of Ocala, Florida with full affliction, and he fought an independent fighter named Varian Phipps. All right, Varian Phipps is an independent fighter. Matt, these independent guys normally don't impress me, but this kid actually took it a little ways, and he didn't do too bad. What did you think about that fight?
Yeah, I think at this point in amateur MMA, that there's so many gyms available that I think that you need to get into a gym, first of all, on the subject of independent fighters. We had a couple of those tonight. They all came out, and then they fought their hearts out. They put on good shows, but I think that to really get those guys to the next level in their young careers, they need to get into a gym and try and attach themselves to someone and to help themselves develop. As far as this fight goes, it was Cheney Oliver all the way. Varian did come out and kind of hang with him. I thought there was a few times where Cheney could have finished it, but Varian kept going. Showed some good heart for a nice young guy, for a debut guy. But this was a Cheney's fight all the way.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. Great job, Cheney Oliver, coming out of Ocala, full affliction. Coaches Peter Finn, and I think they've teamed up now with the Sweatshop and Jess Emery. Fight number 2 was definitely a fun fight to watch for me. It was a big heavyweight fight with Miguel Lopez and Fridge Leon. Fridge Leon and Roy Torres. Okay, those were big heavyweights throwing hands. Listen, this kid Fridge has got a head like concrete. Those guys were trading shots. It was nuts. What about them heavyweights?
Yeah, man, these two were throwing bombs. I thought that Roy Torres probably could have finished this fight off early if he had better cardio. I think midway through the first round, the mouth was hanging open, and you could tell he was exhausted. But they kept going. They stood for a lot of the fight. They threw bombs back and forth. Leon came alive kind of late in the fight where I thought he was done. Threw some bombs there. I think midway through the second, kind of had Torres wobbled, but they hung tough to a decision. I think Torres took a close decision, but I think he won the fight though, just because he worked a little bit more. When they got to the ground, which wasn't much, he was the one a little bit more active, showing a little bit of that ATT Cape Coral training off there. So it was a good fight. You know, you always like to see heavyweights in the cage, especially when they're throwing bombs, and these two were throwing some bombs.
They were. Good job for Roy Torres making his win. First win as an amateur fighter. Congratulations to ATT Cape Coral. Third fight of the night was a tough fight. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was another independent fighter versus one of the fighters from a well-known school, Gracie Tampa. We had Zack Gillenwater versus David Kraft. David Kraft came in here. They did a big story on the TBT on him. He's a local fighter from here, from Tampa. He came in here, and those guys were pushing hard and working hard. The independent guy kind of had a little bad sportsmanship, but in the end, Kraft was awesome. What'd you think about that bad sportsmanship?
Hated it. I always hate that. But you know what? I think that Gillenwater, I'm not sure if, he was billed as independent. He got cornered by Mike D'Angelo Jr. and Sr., so I don't know if he kind of trains with them a little bit, but they talked to him a little bit after that fight, after the slapping of the hand away, and he went up to David and they spoke for a minute, so I think that was rectified. I don't like to see that. I do like that he showed remorse almost right away after being talked to. And as far as the fight goes, I think David Kraft, this is a pretty easy decision for him. Gillenwater just kind of didn't look great. There was times where he showed some good stuff. Again, as I say about the independents, if he can get into a school somewhere and kind of polish his technique, his talents, he's got potential. But tonight was David Kraft all the way.
Yeah, good job, David Kraft. Gracie Tampa North getting that win. Rob Kahn, Jeff Fleming, and the head coaches over there. Those guys do wonders. I'm always going to bring up the sportsmanship with you because I know you're keen on it and you're big on them guys being professional, even at the amateur level. And, there's even my boss, Joe Valdez, has even told me this week alone that if any of these amateurs pull any of these not showing up to weigh-ins or anything, he'll never use them. So, guys, let's stay professional. You're representing the sport. On to our next fight is going to be the fourth fight of the night. I enjoyed this fight because it was Anthony Johnson from Frontline Fitness versus David Miles. And at first I thought it was going to be a landslide on one, but it got pretty even. David Miles almost had Anthony Johnson in a triangle in the first round. But Anthony Johnson put some ground and pound on him and came out victorious. What do you think about how explosive this kid Anthony Johnson is from Frontline, and what do you think we can see from him in the future?
I think some good things. I've seen him fight a couple times now, and he's always come out win or loss. He comes out and he's on point. He brings his best stuff, and tonight he came out with a nice win. I think that there's some major bragging rights when you can win a fight by verbal submission from strikes. So he laid a Dan Henderson like bomb down on Miles there, which kind of had Miles shook. Miles took a few moments to say something, so ref John Hosegood let the fight keep going as he should have. Johnson landed a couple more shots, and then with the verbal submission, you could hear it because he rocked him. He rocked him with some good shots.
Listen, Anthony Johnson, don't mistake him for Rumble in the UFC, but I think he could live up to that nickname after seeing those big shots. Fight 5 was a great female fight. You had Yaren Gonzalez versus Erin Harp, the Gracie Tampa South phenom that I've heard a lot about. It was an amazing fight. I was worried about this one, but wow, it came down to a decision. Gonzalez held her own. Harp had a tough time with her, but man, what a fight.
Let me tell you something about Yaren Gonzalez. First of all, taking this fight on roughly 24 hours notice. Erin's original opponent no-showed, and it's a shame, because I know Erin's been looking forward to this amateur debut for quite some time. Everyone knows Erin Harp's jiu-jitsu background. Phenomenal, one of the best young jiu-jitsu practitioners in the sport. But she's kind of had her MMA debut put on hold for a little while. She had an injury, was forced out of a fight months back, and I know was greatly looking forward to this fight. So she was pretty let down last night when her original opponent didn't show, which goes to what you're talking about and what Joe Valdez is talking to you about. If you commit to something, you want to be in the sport. You say you're going to be somewhere at a certain weight. You say you're going to fight. Show up. Stick to your word, or you're not going to, what's the point, But anyway, so Yarlin steps up. Yarlin's always ready to go. Everybody out of D'Angelo MMA is always ready to go. Phenomenal team down there in Cape Coral. Check them out. But Yarlin is now a 1-3 fighter. And if you look at that record, you're kind of like, what's the point? But if you go watch those fights, girl's a beast. Yes, and she fights beast opponents. She's coming off of a fight against Robin Wisman, who is now 3-0, and that woman is headed straight up. So you talk about Yaren Gonzalez, a phenomenal young fighter who took a fight on short notice against somebody who's been anticipating this for quite some time, and it was a great fight, back and forth, great fight. I really thought this was a decision that either way, I think that it could have gone, but I think that it went the right way because Erin, I thought, did enough. When they got to the ground, Erin was more aggressive, Erin was more controlling, and really took control of that fight. So it was a great fight from both ladies. Neither one of them has anything to be ashamed of tonight.
Yeah, absolutely not. Great job, Erin Harp, Gracie Tampa South. You guys are doing awesome. It was awesome to see you guys win tonight. Next fight, this was a great fight. I love this kid, Patrick Corrigan. He's one of my favorite fighters. He's representing with Team Trauma. The new Team Trauma with Coach Joe Sirocco down there. This kid always brings a show. He's a slow starter in all his fights, but he always pulls it out. He fought Clark Brightwell from Wolfpack MMA in Sarasota, and man, what an awesome fight. What a reach on that kid. Tell us about that.
Now this, I want to say Patrick Corrigan coming off of a tough loss, a couple months back against Troy Worthen over at World Class Fight League. And again, Patrick Corrigan is one of my top AMI guys I like to see fight, man. This guy always brings it. New Team Trauma is doing some phenomenal things right now. They're coming off of a clean sweep at AFC MMA just a few weeks back. But Patrick came out, as you said, a slow start. Brightwell was getting him with that reach. I mean, the dude had to have like a 90-inch reach or something, man. Those arms were stretching across the cage. I almost got hit by one of his punches, but Corrigan stepped it up. He kind of eased into it and ends up, taking over that fight midway through and getting himself a really nice rear naked choke in the third. You know, I think he had Brightwell kind of spazzing a little bit there when that submission was stopped.
Yeah, I was actually had the pleasure to be sitting next to Robbie Craddock at the time, and as Corrigan sunk in the choke, Robbie looked at me and said, "Clark will go to sleep." You know, so he was confident in the willpower of his job. Hands down, good fight. Probably one of my favorite fights of the night tonight, but there's still a couple that we can argue about. Next fight that we had was our co-main event. Our co-main event was Stefan Reese from Ocala, Florida versus Dan Martinez with Gracie Tampa. Dan Martinez is a well-known fighter here locally. Stefan Reese is a newer fighter, so I was kind of worried about this fight. But, man, Stefan Reese came out. I seen him rock. He hit him pretty hard in the first round, and I was kind of worried. But Martinez let that jiu-jitsu kick in, and he got that fight. And, listen, awesome fight. Martinez is tough. Can't wait to see him go pro. What do you think about him?
Man, I thought that this was a fight where you look at a guy like Dan Martinez, who's very well known throughout the area. He's a coach over at Gracie Pack. He fights out of Gracie West with Bamboo, and that team speaks for itself. The name alone. So but Dan's been out for almost 2 years, hasn't fought. Really focused on training, on teaching, on coaching, which is highly admirable. But this guy showed absolutely no ring rust whatsoever. Guy came out, looked as fresh as he had just fought last week, yesterday even, So he looked good. Stefan Slugger Reese hung with him. Like you said, he did rock him in that first. I was sitting next to Sean Walker from Brawl Call, and he said, I think Dan just got rocked, but Dan recovered well. Dan said he felt really rusty in the first. I never saw that, but, sure enough, in that second round, even in the first, give him 10 more seconds, he probably finishes it with that guillotine. But it didn't happen, so they go into the second round. Dan works his magic, gets back to the ground, and just takes over, and that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rules all. So.
That's right. That Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is the key here. Now, the main event of the night, tons of talk, tons of trash talk. We built this fight up for the past 8 weeks. We had a great segment. You just had him, Terry Janowski, on your show this week. You had Tony Murphy the week before. These guys had a little animosity, but listen, they came in here. I figured it was going to be a big brawl, great sportsmanship. Oh, yeah. To me, fight of the night. Yeah. Beginning and end, they had great sportsmanship. These guys worked. Tony Murphy put on a show. Janowski did too. To me, it was a very tough decision. Tony got it in the end. Judges did a good job tonight. I really do think they did. Global Fighting Solutions representing tonight. The judges making good calls. Gaither, what do you think?
I think that there's always a lot of talk and a lot of heat going into a Tony Murphy fight. Tony Murphy is a guy who's got his emotions are on the surface. He's a very passionate and outwardly spoken dude. So there's usually some talk going into one of his fights. But when it comes time to get in that cage, man, there's always respect. Sportsmanship showed, and that was there tonight. But as far as the fight goes, amazing fight. It lived up to the hype. Phenomenal fight. I really wish we could have got 2 more rounds out of that. But that was the best I think I've seen Tony Murphy look, period. Probably the 5th or 6th time I've seen him fight in person, and the best he's looked. His takedowns were on point. His stand-up was good. That's the best stand-up I've seen from Tony Murphy right there. The leg kicks, great leg kicks, perfectly timed. He's in and out, moving like water, man. It was awesome. Now, Terry Janowski, no slump whatsoever. This dude is always at the top of his game. He's fought tough dudes. Tucker Lee Chapman at world class, man. That is a tough fight. Terry's always showing up for big fights, and he did that tonight. I think Tony was a little bit better tonight. I think it's a close call. I don't agree with a unanimous decision. I do think it's a split decision Tony's way, but I think it's the takedowns because Tony would get the takedowns, and Terry being from a jits school, being a jits guy, both I think Tony obviously has a big wrestling base. I believe Terry does too. Terry's got a wrestling background as well, but Tony, I think, just had enough to edge out, and I think it was the right call. I just don't know if I don't agree with the unanimous decision. I think that it was enough of a close battle that it's a split decision Tony's way, but great fight by both guys. Again, these guys were probably each at their best tonight, and it's a shame that there's got to be a loser because I think both of these guys brought their best game tonight, and Tony was just a little bit better.
T-Murph, good job, man. Listen, you put it on. Terry Janowski, amazing fight. You guys are awesome. There's some pro contracts out there that got your names on it. You guys keep training hard, keep being professional, and continue with the success of your career. Well, Matt Gaither, I see that you're wearing some Intimidation clothing tonight. Always. I see that's awesome, so I know you want to thank your sponsors real quick. Go ahead and tell them.
Yeah, man, Intimidation Clothing, intimidationclothing.com. Contact Luke Jernigan if you want to get interested in being sponsored by them, find out their gear. They're the best in the business. Also, MMAmadhouse.com, best website. We're the only website out there covering these local events, and that's it. I mean, that's about it.
That's it. Listen, guys, this is Big Boy here at the FCF Regent. We're giving you the recap show with Matt Gaither. We want to thank our sponsors, Bird & Gonzalez, Boost 365, JA Productions, HouseDoggy.com, new sponsor, NFE, Natural Fuel Energy, and Dan and the guys over there are jumping on board. Listen, we're going to have this show up for you. We're going to bring you the recap. Hope you got to see our live feed tonight through JA Productions. And listen, we're coming to you live. We're giving you on point, on time with all the MMA news. Matt, thank you so much with the recap tonight. Anything else you want to say?
Nah, support local MMA. That's it. Get out. If you're not supporting these guys, then nobody knows about them. So support local MMA.
That's right, folks. On behalf of Fightrepreneur, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.